1,000 megawatts of hydropower. The need of the hour is to shift to efficient and cost-effective means of power generation, and at the same time keep in mind when we are talking about dams, the primary reason is to increase our water availability, because there are new scientific projects with reference to solar as well as wind power, which may reduce the cost of electricity generation as compared to making a dam and the ecological issues which are involved with it. So the basic issue is water conservation and the ability to store our own water for agricultural purposes and for civilian purposes. Ladies and gentlemen, about 2 million drought-ridden and impoverished residents of Tharparkar and Cholistan amplify the human side of this problem. The area represents one of the worst hit regions of the country because of poor water management, non-availability of water, and no source of river water going to them today. And as a result, thousands of children have lost their lives. The situation in Tharparkar is a case in example of how bleak the things may become in other parts of the country in case adequate water management measures are not adopted. In order to improve the groundwater levels and recharge our aquifers, we need to build more delay action dams which hold the water enough to seep into the ground and form and fill up our aquifers. For those of you who are from Karachi, you remember that there was an aquifer around the Malir River, and we used to get water from Damloti wells, which that aquifer has also been depleted. Ladies and gentlemen, water is life, and we as a nation need to conserve it. It is heartening to know that at this crucial juncture, the Honorable Chief Justice of Pakistan has taken the initiative of establishing the Dam Fund. I take this opportunity to thank him on behalf of the nation for being the bastion of this noble cause. I have also come to know that since its inception, a total amount of 6.4 billion rupees as of 17th October have already been generated, which speaks volumes of the enthusiasm and trust by our fellow countrymen. Money is important, but at the same time, the amount of passion this has generated among the overseas Pakistanis and Pakistan in general speaks that the nation is behind this measure and the nation wants things to be done. Provision of safe drinking water is a fundamental right and is also envisaged in the Constitution. It is therefore the responsibility of the state to provide this basic facility to every citizen of the country. During my address to the joint session of the Parliament, I categorically urged upon the legislatures that construction of new water reservoirs should be amongst the top priorities of the government. The launch of Clean and Green Pakistan by the Prime Minister is the right step towards this objective. The government has started dedicated efforts of water conservation, but a lot of publicity by all of us still needs to be done, and management which would require a synergized approach based on integrated water issues depending on the management principles. We need to work with the whole of the nation and I am confident that with commitment, dedication and hard work, we shall achieve our objectives. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan has a national water policy. It is now for all of us to demonstrate motivation and implement this policy. Furthermore, in order to ensure a behavioral change, a campaign on water conservation is also required to be developed and launched. I must also lay stress that our obligation to manage water is not merely limited to our national interests, but it also constitutes a major component of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Goal 6 of the SDGs highlights the ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Sanitation is again under inverted commas because a lot needs to be done in Pakistan, because poor sanitation leads to poor health, poor unfiltered water drinking leads to poor health, and a rupee spent on prevention on these issues can save hundreds in curative care. Ladies and gentlemen, besides construction of large dams as being part of the solution, the government is cognizant of water conservation needs and its management. I would urge the government to adopt world best practices which include but are not limited to building of water reservoirs and dams, planning of water conservation, water audit techniques, water pricing, I think, which is one of the most important. You can't have conservation if you don't price water, because the value of water must be understood both by agriculture and by individuals in cities. And there have been good experiments in the world where water pricing, for example, in Delhi, water pricing has led to better consumption and better conservation measures by people themselves. We should be enhancing the irrigation efficiency and water productivity. And here I must add that the flood irrigation system by which we flood one side of our land and then allow that water to seep into the tail of the land involves about 7 feet of water, 7 feet of flooding of the area on one side and 6 inches at the other. So I must stress that either drip irrigation, which is a little more complicated compared to spray irrigation, that the agriculture must improve its way of delivering water to its crops. Otherwise, agriculture waste is something which is very important to us. The satellite telemetry system for equitable distribution must be used. Sprinkler irrigation, drip irrigation, etc., as I mentioned, is very important. I would also recommend to the relevant education departments that water conservation techniques should be part of the school curriculum. You start educating children early on how to conserve water. Proper usage of water and make our citizens water wise. The above measures have become even more important in the wake of climate change and its impacts, which have seriously affected the overall patterns of water availability. The likelihood of increasing glacier melt may cause fast depletion of our existing reserves in the mountains because of global warming, which stems out from pollution, and future availability of water will be less as the glaciers melt more and less snowfall takes place. Initiatives such as the billion tree tsunami and the 10 billion tree tsunami now should be encouraged to address the environmental degradation. Scientific research has shown that where there are more trees, there is more rainfall. Scientific research has shown that when trees are planted, the decay and the depletion of land and the topsoil does not take place. Pakistan should also make efforts towards safeguarding our water rights. Issues pertaining to the Indus water treaty is one such example, and I will talk about it because I researched that about 10 years ago. This would require meticulous thinking on our part and engaging with our neighbors to avoid potential conflicts in the future. In this regard, I would urge the Foreign Office and the concerned stakeholders to engage in a constructive dialogue to achieve bilateral and multilateral arrangements on transboundary water matters. Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to take this opportunity to highlight another important point. We as a nation need to think beyond local and parochial interests. This is an important statement. We need to think for our country above all, that is, Pakistan comes first, but with confidence building measures between the provinces. We need to build a general consensus and a feeling of mutual trust, which may be lacking. The concerns of different stakeholders should be addressed at the institutional level and also in the parliament. Irsa Water Accord of 1991 is a good example in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, water is the cradle of life. Historically, civilizations have thrived near water streams and have perished without it. Civilizations have moved and have died. And I have a very strong fear in Balochistan where there is a serious crisis of water. We as a nation have to preserve water for our present and future generations. I hope that the symposium and its thematic sessions will be informative for the participants and will play an important role towards creating water awareness for a water-secure Pakistan. The initiative being organized by Law and Justice Commission of Pakistan under the guidance of the Honorable Chief Justice is highly appreciated. I am optimistic that this symposium will be instrumental towards formulation of tangible solutions to create a water-secure Pakistan. Now, I need to just give you certain ideas which came to mind while there was a discussion going on at this forum. The Indus Water Basin Treaty is a good structure right now. Pakistan should not be challenging this. It is a relatively decided issue. The present Prime Minister of India, in one of his earlier speeches, had mentioned the fact that they think it should be revisited. I don't think it is in Pakistan's interest, but the Indus Water Basin Treaty establishes a framework which can be on which issues can be discussed. But what has happened, something which the Indus Water Basin Treaty does not cater for. For example, it does say that the waters allocated to Pakistan will not be used for agricultural purposes in India, but waters allocated to Pakistan can be used for generation of hydroelectricity. But my question has been there, and I have not yet received a reply because it does not get catered for in the Indus Basin Treaty. For example, a dam is built to store water to generate electricity. My question is, that is my water. My question is that the loss of water in that lake is my water lost. My question is, the water seeping in that lake in India is my water which is lost. So the treaty does not address those two issues. And I think there must be some way of looking at that and increasing our water availability. Similarly, the second issue is IRSA. IRSA came about in 91, an IRSA accord on distribution between the provinces, and that also is based on sound structure. But the fact between provinces is that nobody trusts any one of them. The issue is that the telemetry system was established to create more trust, and the trust is based, the issue is amount of water and the timing of water release. If the amount of water is fudged with, or the timing of water the release of water is managed in such a way that it is released when the need is not there or before the need is there, it creates a mistrust. So Pakistan must be addressing telemetry, some form of measurement, so the provinces gain trust. The resistance to dams, which was mentioned to me right now, the resistance to dams have been because of the lack of trust. If the distribution, as the accord envisages, the distribution is understood and accepted, then Punjab should be holding waters which has been allocated to it, and Sindh should be increasing its water reservoirs, which has the amount which has been allocated to Sindh. But today we need to build that trust up. The other thing I need to mention was pricing. I think without pricing it cannot happen. Balochistan, I have already mentioned, very serious issue in the cities. Water is at 1200 meters, impossible to be able to pump it out, and I think immediate construction of dams to handle their aquifers, recharge their aquifers is very important. You know what is the system of water in the earth? Why are the oceans saltish? The oceans are saltish because water was always pure. Earth started with pure water. But the system of the climate, when water was evaporated from the oceans, went into mountains, and when water flowed, it dissolved salts. So all that flow over millions of years have created oceans, saltish oceans. So for coastal areas, desalination is a technology which is expensive, which cannot be used for agriculture, for example. But at least in Karachi, for example, this government is looking for desalination to be able to at least serve the cities like that. You mentioned, sir, in the end, I must add an anecdotal part of my memory, that you mentioned the fact that the human body is mostly water. The current Prime Minister of Pakistan, during our long struggle for 22 years, decided to do a hunger strike. And he decided to go on hunger strike, but he also went on a water strike. Normally, historically, Maran Bharat rakha jata tha India mein. Wo Maran Bharat meant that the person would not eat but drink liquids. Mr. Imran Khan decided not to have water and not to have any food at all. And anecdotally, on the third or fourth day, he felt very difficult even to get up from the bed. And historically, two other things which I must mention, that the human body, there is no research on how much water is needed and what happens, except that the arrestees of the Irish Republican Army went on a total strike, that is probably around the 60s and 70s. On the ninth day, they lost eyesight, because water is so essential for life. On the 9th day, they lost eyesight. By the 22nd day, they were not able to communicate at all, because when we talk, why we have water on the side? Because we need lubrication within our mouths also. And most of them lost their life between the 50th and the 55th day. So water is essential to living. Practical measures. I believe conferences must come out with practical measures and goals with timelines on what to do and how to do it. It is a very essential issue which you have raised, Mr. Chief Justice, and I am grateful. And I think I am very confident that with good deliberation, Pakistan is a strong country, is a dynamic country with a vibrant population, and we can handle all problems thrown on our face. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Sadr Pakistan